So we made a decision to make an AI literacy course compulsory for all college level students in Kazakhstan. We said, heck, we're going to be really future ready, future proof. We're going to make sure all college level students in Kazakhstan know how to use AI in everyday life to boost their efficiency, personal, and then use AI and algorithms in their fields of studies.
Welcome to the Coursera podcast, where we have conversations with renowned experts and industry leaders to explore global trends impacting the future of education and work. I'm your host, Arunav Sinha, Vice President of Global Communications at Coursera. Technology is creating a skilled worker shortage, and with it, an unprecedented need for reskilling and upskilling globally. While AI is disrupting the job market, it is also offering new opportunities for those with the right skills. These changes affect workers at all levels, prompting communities to seek flexible, lifelong learning from their institutions to stay relevant in a fast changing workforce. Today, I'm excited to welcome Sayasat Nurbek, the Minister of Science and Higher Education at Kazakhstan, to discuss how the widespread adoption of online learning is helping to bridge the skills gap in the country. As a distinguished educator, lecturer, and one of the most prominent experts on education and the labor market in Kazakhstan, Minister Nurbek is on a mission to uplevel Kazakhstan's higher education system. Today, we will explore several groundbreaking initiatives that he has been leading in the country and setting a blueprint for many other countries to emulate. Welcome, Siyasat. I'm so honored to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Arunav. And pleasure and honor is all mine. So thank you for having me today.
Okay, so let's dive right in. And I want to start with your career and how it started. And your career has really spanned from human resources and goodwill ambassador to public policy and finance. What finally attracted you to focus on education and workforce development?
So education has always been why my passion. It's something really spawned back in my childhood. So I was orphaned at a very early age. I had to go to boarding school, a small town in east of Kazakhstan, famous for its nuclear testing area, Semipalatinsk. So it was as Nevada was this great nuclear experimentation and testing area in states. So the Soviet Union, Semipalatinsk was famous for nuclear tests, and almost 500 nuclear explosions underground, on ground, in air were done in the vicinity of my hometown. So education was the only thing that actually saved me. Back in early 90s, we had this international high school that was launched in my hometown. And back then I was in that small Russian Soviet school, primary school. Then all of a sudden we had this international school. I was one of the first students to apply. And thanks to that school, English, my first, I've been studying English for 5 years in that Soviet school. So that was, it was a big discovery for me. I was 12, 13 years of old. I understood that the great equalizer is education. Education can give me a chance to discover the world, to open new horizons. Okay, I will learn English. I will apply to foreign college, and that I did. I finished my high school, applied to American college. You could actually tell it by my fake American accent. And then I graduated from that college and then opened up new horizons. I did my master's in Rome, La Sapienza. I always dreamed of history, of ancient Rome. So that another dream came through. I graduated and I taught in two universities in Italy. I'm fluent in Italian and Latin. Then it went on and on. Japan, Netherlands, and Singapore was another of my dreams. So I graduated from Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy in Singapore. And then my career took off, and it was very interesting career. Mostly, my first phase was in human resources. I was the youngest head of the HR policy division at administration of the president of Kazakhstan. And then when I was head of HR policy division, it was so clear to me we need to reshuffle our higher education and vocational training and skills, upskilling and reskilling, because Kazakhstan primarily, thanks to Soviet Union, our higher education was solid. I mean, we had solid universities founded back in Soviet Union, solid research institutions, but it was very clear we need to we need to reshuffle it radically. So that's never my last dream. One of my last dreams was, okay, how do I do that? I was with Academy of Public Administration. I was the vice dean, deputy president of Academy of Public Administration. Then I was the founder of National School of Public Policy. Then Bolashak program. There was a famous presidential scholarship program called Bolashak in Kazakhstan, and then on and on. And then I decided, well, no. If I want to build a learning society, that's book about a famous economist and education specialist creating the learning, building the learning society. It affected me a lot. I said, well, I need to make my way through to become Minister of Education because that's where I could really introduce the policies and then change the higher education model. So I tried to approach the president. I was made a member of the National Advisory Board Council under the president. So that's where I had a chance to introduce my ideas. So president, he supported the ideas. He said, "Well, I think you have a very comprehensive and thorough vision of what and how to change the education system in Kazakhstan." And before that, about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I launched a project called the Atlas of New Skills and Jobs. That's where I had a very in depth understanding of how the technology, digital, then later on AI would affect labor market, how new skills would emerge, and what kind of professions would go obsolete, will die off. So I came up with very simple but yet robust methodology framework. How do you identify those new skills and jobs? How do you identify the skills and jobs that would need to transform, and how do you identify the ones that retire? We call them retiring professions. They would go out of the market. It was a very successful project called the Atlas of New Professions of Kazakhstan. It is now widely used by many higher education and vocational schools for the curriculum upgrade. So that was the foundation of that new vision, new model of education in Kazakhstan. So the president supported this vision, and 2 years ago, exactly 11th of June, when I was appointed as Minister of Higher Education and Science. So all these journey, different spheres, different sectors, different countries. As I said, I received too much education, European, Asian, American. It actually led me to this moment where I could finally introduce this vision and implement this vision of how do you build what we call a future-proof education model. How do you ensure that your curricula is constantly upgraded, that we could build this flexible, robust but flexible system that can adjust itself, that can make sure the industries have a voice in clearly defining their demand, and education institutions have enough flexibility and autonomy to adjust, adopt, come up with new curricula. There's a new term for it, Arnav. I'm going to stop here. Now, we always talked about reskilling and upskilling, and now it's all about deep skilling. What do you do when, the short-term trainings are not enough? What do you do when demands are so radically new? What do you do when an AI is changing the whole landscape of labor market? So you need to have enough flexibility to really quickly adapt for it, and enough depth and institutional capacity to for dip skilling, not just short-term risk skilling or upskilling. You need to change the core of skill sets of your labor force. So that's a huge challenge for many governments, and there are different solutions. And I'm sure during our podcast, I'll give more details on what we do in Kazakhstan in this part of the world.
Absolutely. Sayasat, Kazakhstan has experienced a GDP growth rate of 5.1% in 2023, and that's quite impressive. And that clearly shows that the steps that you're taking while the world is facing some sort of a slowdown and economies are under difficulty, Kazakhstan is definitely doing pretty well. But this economic growth is closely linked to the labor market's ability to adapt and evolve. That's something that you talked about from a deep skilling perspective. What are some of the main challenges Kazakhstan faces in upskilling and reskilling its workforce?
We're doing relatively good, yeah, in terms of economic growth and growth of GDP per capita. So yes, That growth was in part thanks to our ability to attract foreign workforce, and thanks to the strategy of posting or positioning Kazakhstan as alternative academic and research hub of the region. So if you look, Arnav, at our larger region, which is former Soviet Union, Central Asia, Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, India, there are almost 2 billion people living in that region. We had a second, and this region used to be called Greater Eurasia. We had the second fastest growing region in terms of demographic population, demographic growth after Africa. Africa has the fastest growth. Asia is actually slowing down in terms of demographics. And then comes our region, the Great Eurasia region. Kazakhstan enjoys a demographic explosion, 400,000 babies born annually. Uzbekistan, our nearest neighbors, 1 million babies annually. And then India, 60,000 babies daily. A mid-sized Kazakh town every day, every single day. So that creates a lot of demand, a lot of young workforce. So there's a great growing demand for higher education in our region. And historically, Russia, Ukraine used to be academic mobility hubs of the region. Now, given the complications, more and more young people looking, searching for alternatives. Where do I get solid, good education? So Kazakhstan has all the chances. So in the last 2 years, we're following what we call middle hub strategy. We were able to attract 20 plus solid research universities to Kazakhstan. Harriet Watt, University of Arizona, City University of Hong Kong, Seoul Tech, Seoul National University of Science and Technology, KAIST, Korean Advanced Institute of Science and Technology. So we have about 20 plus really strong universities. They come with their programs. For each of these foreign universities, we have found a local partner and we've made a contract so that these foreign universities would start transformation of local Soviet modeled teaching universities into international research intensive universities. And it paid off immediately enough. And so in the last 2 years, 20 plus campuses. So we have 20 plus campuses in Kazakhstan. And University of Arizona would be a good example. That last year, 2 years ago, we had the first batch of intake admissions, 148 students. We started with four bachelor programs. Last year, it was 500 students. This year, we'll have 1,000 more. So when they bring these new programs, new curricula, quality assurance systems, we were able to bring two the QAA, Quality Assurance Agency, one of the leading British quality assurance and accreditation agencies, to Kazakhstan. It immediately paid off. The human capital quality, number of students and faculty who speak English, we get new accreditations, and we're starting to get commercial students. Now, the challenges are there. So I have at least three major challenges. One is English language, Harna, still predominantly the Kazakhstan being part of Soviet Union for me historically. Most of our teaching is done in Russian and Kazakh language, local language, our native language. So there are not many universities who have instructional language as English. So that's what we're trying to do, creating more international programs, bringing all these British, American, Germans, Chinese, Korean universities. There's a big Wusong University, a Korean university, would be opening up a big campus in the south of Kazakhstan, and Seoul Tech will be establishing School of Artificial Intelligence in south of Kazakhstan in partnership with local university. So I need to make at least certain percentage of my curricula, higher education curricula, in English language or international languages. So that'll be a challenge, big challenge. You take EF, education first, English first, education first. It's called English Proficiency Index. We scored quite low, around 90 position out of 122 countries. We're 22nd among 25 Asian countries. So that's a big challenge. Number two challenge is quality of my faculty. So back in 90s when Soviet Union collapsed, we had a very strong faculty. I mean, there are many things. Soviet Union, I mean, we are thankful for good research and good education institutions. They were solid, like chemistry, physics, STEM, math. And there were 52,000 registered faculty and researchers in 1990, year before the collapse of Soviet Union. So after 10 years, 2000, only 12,000 of them remain. So we've lost 40,000 good, solid, well-educated faculty members, senior faculty members, and researchers. So now it'll take a lot of time to recover from that. I now have 25,000 only, compared to 52,000 back in 1990, right, before the fall of Soviet Union. Thanks, we have certain programs like Bolshak, a government scholarship program, a presidential scholarship program. So we have about 13,000 graduates who have received best education in top schools. And Ibolat here, my colleague who's negotiating with you, he's a Cornell graduate. He has a master in public administration from Cornell. So we have best students from best universities. So I'm now tapping into that resource to build my faculty. And a third limitation and challenge would be uh, infrastructure. So again, that's the biggest challenge for higher education institutions around the globe. Uh, 400 million students, people around the globe out of almost 8 billion world population have proper access to higher education. And infrastructure is becoming a huge limitation because there's just only so much, so many students you could train given your campuses and dorms and infrastructure and labs. India is a great. Indonesia is large growing countries. Nigeria, they can't. Providing access to higher education is a huge challenge for these countries. There are almost 1,200,000 schools, primary schools in India, and every 7 days, every week, a new education institution organization is established in India. There's a saying in India, it's easier to get to MIT than to IIT, Indian Institute of Technology. And so online education, hybrid education provide I believe it's one of the few tools any government has to provide wider access to tap into different resources, because infrastructure is expensive. You need billions and billions of dollars in infrastructure, and most of the governments have limited resources, just like our government. So I am building new campuses. We're investing a lot in new infrastructure and labs, but it's not enough. We will be always dragging behind. So we use partnerships like the one we have with Coursera, with Huawei, with all these big technology companies, Google, Microsoft. We have very, very interesting partnerships started with Google Education, where we have designed a course on AI literacy. And we're providing this course for free to 15 our top technology and IT universities. It's going really well. So we made a decision to make an AI literacy course compulsory for all college level students in Kazakhstan. As I said, you want to have future proof education. Certain things, these new skills, has to be taught, on a wider scale. We said, well, heck, we're going to be really future ready, future proof. We're going to make sure all college level students in Kazakhstan know how to use AI in everyday life to boost their efficiency, personal, and then use AI and algorithms in their fields of study. So no matter, it doesn't, you could be an international relations or law student. It will be compulsory starting from next year. So technology, at one hand, creates new challenges, and demand is really radical, imminent demand for retraining and deep skilling. On the other hand, it provides some solutions where you could bypass leapfrogged infrastructure limitations to give new skills to a wider range of people.
You pointed to something that you have a twin challenge, and like many other countries, on one side you have a growing population which is highly aspirational, seeking opportunities, economic mobility. On the other hand, you also have a rapid change that is reshaping the world. And then you have the third problem: how do I fulfill this demand in a rapidly changing world with an infrastructure that can scale to serve the citizens? Now, you led, and you talked about a lot of campuses being built in Kazakhstan, which is incredible. But you also led another initiative, which is about fully embracing online learning, recognizing that digital connectivity and online learning can be very powerful in building equal access in digital economy. In fact, if you can briefly talk about how your ministry is addressing these challenges, especially in terms of scaling the education system of Kazakhstan.
Thank you, Arnav. Yes. So there are at least, I'll give you several examples, but one, we have allowed a lot of university to go on with hybrid education. So we said we're going to partner with large content providers like Coursera, or like TikTok.
Mhm.
We have a very excellent partnership with TikTok so that we could give an extra content and extra access to this content through the partnership with their platforms to all of our college level students at the first stage, and then to faculty members, and then to local communities as well. So what we did with Coursera was we are the very first nation in the world to make Coursera content part of our national curricula officially. So what we do, we provide full access to Coursera content and courses to 93, that is almost all of our universities. We have 120, but then there are military schools, the academies. So there are civil, as we call them, civil universities, public and private. There are about 93 of them. So we give all of them full access to Coursera platform, and we make sure our students can choose among these courses as their elective. So basically, elective courses plus Coursera courses. And if student goes and completes the course and gets a certificate, he's giving a credit, just like he's taken an elective. At that time, we have instant. There was an instant boost in quality content, instant boost attention in performance. At first stage, we want to make sure students get accustomed to that, and we had wonderful stories out enough. We had students who have completed 15, 20, 25, 30, 50 courses within academic year. Because why? Because it was interesting. They were able to tap into best content provided by best professors at best universities. Second, it created a lot of competition with local faculty. So we told our local faculty, you are now competing not with each other, not with yourselves. You're now competing with the world. You have. I mean, it's a very rough way. We've taken you out of your comfort zone. Now you have to compete with best professors in your field from MIT, from Stanford, from best top universities. So, excusez-moi, you have to run faster. You have to do something. You have to provide content in English. So it was big challenge, and our faculty is still in shock, in a state of complete shock. But there were certain faculty members who said, "Okay, I'm willing to compete," and they started recording their own courses. So we have the very first courses of our local faculty who are now part of Coursera platform, and we make big promotion out of them. I said, "Well, you could be a big fish in a very small pond of local higher education. What about going out to the ocean and yeah, and then sailing with the big fish, right? Sailing with sharks, sailing with whales, sailing with piranhas, and so you have to compete. And now the faculty slowly is taking up the challenge. They say, "Well, wow, okay." And it's great that the partnership with Coursera gave the Coursera Studio, so our faculty was able to, well, we don't call it, we call it reverse engineering, to have a closer look at these courses of best teachers, right? The international faculty. Huh. This is how they structured their course. That's how they compose. That's how this is the sources they use. This is the cases they use. This is the examples they use. Okay, they keep it short. They give some room for Q&A. So, in terms of methodology and pedagogical skills, it was a great impact it's having. So now, what we do in every university, we create what we call pedagogical design teams. So they sit down, they look at the courses, and they help to train local faculty. Okay, uh, guys, this is, wow. Look at this top faculty from whatever, MIT, from Northwestern. This is the way he gives this lecture. This is how he structures it. This is how it's called pedagogical design. So it is a great boost for quality. And then last but not least, is local faculty is now getting the mentality is changing both in students and faculty members, because they say, huh, there's, I was not afraid. I mean, like, we were so accustomed to traditional way of teaching, and now I could efficiently use some of these extra courses to build, to personalize, to individualize my learning journey. So it's what it's called in the biz, in our higher education biz. It used to be a customer journey map. Now it's student journey map, where you have more personalized. You can actually build it. Say, okay, I'm going to take a couple of these courses. This is what I'm interested in. So we're now changing. So we're giving more room for personal learning trajectory, what we call. So, introducing hybrid education, introducing online education, not only changed the mentality of our students and faculty, and they were able to tap into really high quality education content, it also transformed, it gave them more capacity to open up. Okay, the faculty was whining, oh, I can only serve my contingency, my 5,000 of my students. Now we said, hey, we're involved, we have new resources, we can outreach, we can reach more people, we can create courses, self-learning courses for larger communities. So now universities are stepping up, they're opening up, and they're helping local communities to. And there's an interesting correlation, by the way. The silver universities, the regions and cities that have silver universities, the performance of kids in high schools and primary schools have increased because their grandparents now are more confident. They can, old dogs can teach new tricks, a couple of new tricks.
That's right.
And it is an interesting correlation. And the governors now ask more, can you open a self university in my region? Because then the performance of local kids also increases.
In fact, that's incredible. Those kind of correlations are something that other countries can learn as well. And the other part, which is a trend that is emerging, and I don't know whether that's something that you talk to faculty about or not, is that as faculty starts creating online content and serve students outside of the country, they assume some sort of an ambassadorial role where they're building the brand of the country from an education perspective. And that's how US and UK and France and other countries built in terms of soft power. Is that something which is also somewhere in your mind, is how we can build the brand of Kazakhstan, where people can come work in Kazakhstan, but also we can serve the world what we know?
Exactly. No, no, that's exactly our strategy. So we're building a very strong brand name, study in Kazakhstan, because now, as I said, 2 billion people in the region, more than half of them billion people, young people below age 25, not many great educational academic institutions in the area. Soviet Union and then Russia and Ukraine used to be academic mobility hubs. So there are certain restrictions now. So what this billion people, they're looking for education. So Kazakhstan has a great chance. We call it once in a lifetime opportunity, once in a generation window of opportunity to capture this moment and position ourselves as alternative education hub. And in 2 years, as I mentioned, we were able to build this network of campuses. We were celebrating last week the very first commercial student applied from Russia to Harriet Watt Aktobe campus. Um, when we opened admissions, he was number one student to come and sign a contract. So eventually, we have a KPI, we have an ambition to serve at least 100,000 students annually, to becoming this academic hub.
You talked a lot about upgrading the education system. How are you making sure that industry is deeply involved in setting the priorities and the curriculum of your higher education institutions?
There are two very specific tools. One is called Atlas of New Skills and Professions. So every 2 3 years, we go out and work with every enterprise, large and medium sized factory, plant, enterprise, local entrepreneurial associations, local governments. And we have designed this special methodology called the Skills Technology Foresight. So it's structured like a big foresight session. It took normally few weeks. So everybody sits down. We do this very careful analysis of what new skills, new professions are demanded by these local industries. And there's special form, special methodology. They bring all their technical people, chief engineers, safety people, human resources people, and they say, well, we're going to go to this new upgrade. We're going to introduce this new platform. So I'll give you one quick example. The large mining companies, they said we're going to use a lot of automation, so we're going to digitize all platforms. We're going to digitize our mining operations. We're going to put a lot of sensors into our mining equipment. So we said, well, okay, we do that analysis. So there are certain skills, data mining, data collection, big data analyst, because you now have a lot of information coming from that equipment. It's telemetering, it's what it's called. So you have a lot of data coming. Okay, the oil pressure, the all kinds of the exhaustion, structural changes. So we came up with new profession called predictive analytics engineer. So it'll be an engineer who has a team of people gathering this data and analyzing and building maintenance models. So he is a completely new. So when we started new curricula, we started training this kind of engineers. So he comes back to maintenance teams and says, guys, giving the analysis of data I have from this specific piece of equipment, I do prediction that it's going to break very soon. So you got to go before it breaks and do the maintenance check. And then all his data he talks to procurement people. Look, guys, most likely this kind of equipment will be out of order soon, so you better start making extra stocks of spare parts for this specific equipment, and so on and so forth. So we do it every 3 4 years, 3 to 5 years, to upgrade the curricula, and then all the local universities and vocational schools have to upgrade their curricula based on that atlas of new professions. And then last thing is, every university has what we call, and we it's a new practice we started about 4 or 5 years ago. What we call, well, not all universities, but the technical universities, engineering universities, they have what we call industrial committees. So all the curricula changes in curricula, upgrades in curricula, has to go for this industrial committee, where you have local CEOs of local factories and plants and businesses and industries and industrial associations, entrepreneur associations, chambers of commerce, and then they have to be part of that curriculum revision process. So every large university has to have industrial committee and work really closely with local industries if they want to change, design new curricula or upgrade new curricula, or and then these associations, chambers of commerce, have to come up with what we call professional standards for each sphere of economy, like logistics, transportation. These local industry associations, they have to give us. There's a special form. It's called professional standard. They have to in very detailed manner. They have to say, okay, if I want to have an air hostess, so we have Air Astana, our local carrier. We have all the local air companies, airlines, Scott, private ones, smaller ones. They come together and they have to fill in this form and define the skill set, the framework. Okay, if I want to have air hostess, she has to know English, she has to be this, she has to know some psychology classes. So we use that professional standard, as we call it, as basis for all the curricula at the local universities. So it's quite viral. It's a comprehensive system. We just would put it in place. So it's a framework by which every university has to upgrade. But it's still not enough, Arna. It's still not enough because things are changing. Like 3 years ago, AI was something. There were only first rumors. Oh, this thing coming. This thing. Last year was a breakthrough year for AI with ChatGPT. This year it's big competition. Big boys are in the game. Gemini, Google, Microsoft. We just bought ChatGPT, and then every big company is trying to come up with their own algorithms and large language models. So again, we have to do more. We have to be more radical. So as I mentioned, we were introducing this AI literacy course and making it compulsory for all college level students. So governments around the world now facing this huge problem. How do you make sure you're fast enough to adopt to the change?
Definitely, this is an unprecedented disruption that humanity is facing. But you know what, Minister Nurbek, the model that you've created, the virtuous cycle, where curriculum upgrade, industry inputs, your own vision, economic imperatives, that could be a fantastic model for many countries to emulate.
Exactly. And then we were approached by Nunzio Quacquarelli, the founder of QS Ranking. And now they're building a lot of platforms apart from just ranking universities, since they have to work really closely with employers, different companies. They're building different platform, one mentor platform. So they got really interested in this framework. They said, this is something we haven't seen in many countries. So now they want to make partnership to actually export that framework, that methodology we've designed, the technology, foresight, skills technology, foresight methodology to other countries. So hopefully, our experience will be used by many countries. And for Coursera, as I was joking with Jeff Majincalda, the CEO of Coursera, we've actually created a new business model for Coursera. I call it B2N model, business to nation. So
Business to
Coursera is
nations.
helping the whole nation, and I was really privileged and honored to sign several recommendation letters, because now some countries like Greece, Georgia, some European countries, they heard about this model, and they've been approaching Coursera. It's like, well, we want to, it's interesting model. Why don't we try? So I was your colleague said that Chat Pasha, he said, well, can you give us a recommendation? Can you elaborate on that, what we did in Kazakhstan? And I was so happy. Yeah, just span of 2 years, we're giving this alternative quality content to all of our public universities and private universities, and thousands and thousands of students.
Thank you, Minister Nurbek, for sharing your knowledge and insights with it. That was really generous for you to cover so many topics in such a short time. It is indeed inspiring to witness how Kazakhstan is pioneering the field of education and workforce development through strategic partnerships and innovative solutions. If you enjoyed this episode of the Coursera podcast, please rate, review, and share. Until next time, I'm Arunav Sinha. Thank you for tuning in.